The first threat didn't arrive with raised voices or angry confrontations. It arrived quietly, folded neatly inside an envelope taped to my fence like a warning sign. No greeting, no conversation, just a statement telling me I was in violation of HOA rules for keeping livestock on my property. They demanded removal, immediately, or the fines would begin. At first, I stood there holding the paper, looking out at the animals that had been part of this land for years. They weren't loud, they weren't neglected, they weren't causing problems for anyone. But the HOA didn't care about reality. They cared about control. What made it almost laughable was the timing. The animals had been there long before the HOA ever existed, long before the welcome signs, the newsletters, and the monthly meetings where a handful of people decided how everyone else should live. But that history didn't fit their narrative, so they ignored it. A week later, another letter came. This one wasn't polite. It accused me of knowingly violating community standards. It mentioned daily fines, liens, legal action. The message was clear: comply or suffer. That's when I realized this wasn't about livestock at all. It was a test. They wanted to see if I'd fold under pressure like so many others had. Most people never fight HOAs because the system feels stacked against them. The language is confusing, the threats feel official, and the fear of legal trouble is enough to make people give up even when they're right. HOAs know this. They depend on it. But something about the way they wrote those letters bothered me. There was confidence, but not certainty, authority, but no evidence. They cited rules without explaining how those rules actually applied to my land. So instead of responding, I started researching. I pulled my property deed, the original zoning designation, county land use maps, tax records, old permits, and buried deep in those documents was something the HOA clearly never bothered to check. My land was zoned agricultural, not partially, not conditionally, fully agricultural, which meant livestock wasn't just allowed, it was protected. Then I read the HOA bylaws, slowly, line by line, and there it was, a grandfather clause. Properties with existing agricultural use prior to the HOA's formation were exempt from animal restrictions. In other words, they had no case. But instead of admitting that, they doubled down. The fines began, small at first, then larger. Each notice warning that unpaid fines could turn into a lien on my property. That's when frustration turned into determination. I sent them a letter, not emotional, not defensive, professional. I cited zoning codes, county ordinances, and their own bylaws. I included copies of official documents, and I asked them to confirm, in writing, how they believed they had authority over agricultural land. They never replied. Silence can be louder than threats, because silence means they know they're wrong, but they're hoping you don't know that. So I escalated. I contacted the county zoning office and requested a formal compliance review. I filed a complaint outlining the HOA's actions. I documented every letter, every fine, every threat, and I asked for an on-site inspection. When the county inspector arrived, the atmosphere changed immediately. The HOA suddenly wanted to be involved. They requested meetings, they asked for delays, they wanted to clarify misunderstandings. But inspections don't care about misunderstandings, they care about facts. The inspector walked the property, reviewed the records, confirmed the zoning, and within days I received the ruling. My livestock was legal. The HOA had no authority to interfere, and their fines were unenforceable. That's when panic set in on their side. The letters stopped. The phone calls started. Their tone was completely different now. They talked about compromise, about moving forward peacefully, about putting the past behind us. But I wasn't interested in pretending none of it happened. I demanded written acknowledgement of my rights. I requested reimbursement for the fines they had issued illegally, and I made it clear that any further harassment would be treated as retaliation. That message spread faster than I expected. Neighbors started reaching out. Some quietly thanked me. Others shared their own stories, fines over gardens, threats over sheds, warnings over chickens. People who had complied out of fear suddenly realized they didn't have to. Within months, the HOA board faced serious scrutiny. Rules were revised, enforcement slowed, and the same organization that once tried to bully me into compliance now hesitated before sending a single letter. Here's what I learned from all of this. HOAs are not above the law. They operate within limits, even when they pretend otherwise. Their power only exists as long as people don't challenge it. They thought threatening me over livestock would be easy. They thought I'd remove the animals and move on. Instead, they exposed their own overreach and triggered changes they never saw coming. So if you're watching this and dealing with an HOA that's making demands, remember this: read everything, document everything, and never assume authority equals correctness. Because sometimes the biggest mistake an HOA can make is choosing the wrong homeowner to threaten.